What's up, guys? So, I spent most of my life struggling with people pleasing, but over the last few years, I began to sort of heal from this and grow from this. And, don't get me wrong, it's something I still am working through, but I've matured in a lot of ways that I believe allow me to help some of you guys out there. So, that being said, I wanted to make this video today discussing a specific trait or aspect of people pleasing to hopefully help some of you that are struggling with people pleasing. Oftentimes, when someone has people pleasing tendencies, all of their thoughts and opinions shared publicly are shared as an attempt to gain the approval and validation of a group of people they admire. This is obvious when someone agrees with someone they admire, or they share an opinion that they know the other person already agrees with. But this is less obvious when a people pleaser publicly disagrees with a group of people, hoping to win over the small minority that also shares the same opinions as them. I'll give you an example. I'll sort of explain this. Let's say there's a group of people and they all say, "We love apples." The people pleaser might also say, "Oh yeah, I love apples too," trying to gain the validation of the group. This represents the first example of people pleasing, agreeing with someone's opinions to gain their approval. Now let's say there's a group of 10 people and 7 of them say, "We love apples." The people pleaser might say, "I actually hate apples. I think apples are disgusting." On the surface, it may appear that this person, he isn't afraid to share his mind, speak his mind, and share his opinions. He's not afraid to ruffle some feathers. He's not concerned with agreeing with the group. He's not concerned with the people that disagree with him. But in reality, the people pleaser is trying to gain the approval of the other 2 people in the group that also hate apples. And before you get ahead of yourselves and start to think, you might think, I wouldn't hesitate to share that I hate apples, even if everyone there disagrees with me. Who cares? They're just apples. But let's raise the stakes. I'll give you a more realistic example. Oftentimes you'll see this sort of behavior on the topic, let's just say like on a topic of politics. Let's pretend in this scenario you do construction and everyone on the job site has very right-wing political beliefs. And in this example, you also have right-wing political beliefs. When a political topic comes up in conversation, it's easy for you to agree with them, and it's easy for you to share opinions of your own because you know that the people around you also agree with you. It's a safe space. You can just share what's on your mind. You can share what you believe because, there's no danger in people rejecting you. People already agree with you. You could just sort of, I guess, more or less be yourself and just sort of share exactly what you think about things because no one's gonna reject you for your beliefs. They also believe that. Now let's say in this imaginary scenario you're at some sort of social event with 2 of your buddies from construction, and let's just say these are 2 people who you're hoping to gain the approval from. You're hoping that they accept you. You're hoping to just be liked by them. And so you're with these two guys from construction. You're at a social event, and you guys find yourself in a conversation with a group of 7 people, and the conversation turns political, and you soon realize that those 7 people have very differing political beliefs from you. You may not hesitate to push back and debate them on their opinions. You may be much more combative with them because you're not concerned with gaining validation from the group of 7 you disagree with. You're more concerned with receiving the approval of your 2 buddies that agree with you. And you may even be more sort of disagreeable or combative with the 7 people who disagree with you because you're trying to prove yourself to the 2 buddies that you have and sort of show, oh man, this guy's not afraid to speak his mind, to speak truth. He's not afraid of what people think of him. He's out here just sharing exactly what he thinks, unfiltered. You're not concerned with this sort of tribe of people that disagrees with you as long as you have a tribe of people, as long as you have this sort of camp of people that accepts you and that you're a part of. You're not afraid to sort of butt heads with another camp because you have this backing of people that have accepted you and agree with you and that validate you. Now let's just say, we'll use another scenario. The people pleaser is in a group setting and these are new people to him. He wants to, or she wants to gain the approval and validation, be accepted by this group of people. But they quickly hear in conversation that there's a topic brought up that they completely disagree with. If there's a group of people that the people pleaser is hoping to gain approval and acceptance from, it's really easy for them to rationalize keeping quiet during, risky conversations where they know the group disagrees with them, as, they'll rationalize it as not stirring the pot, keeping the peace. Everyone has their own opinions. I'll just keep quiet. I'll just let them sort of share their opinions. Why do I need to ruffle feathers? When in reality, it's an act of cowardice. You know, the true reason they don't share what they truly think is in fear of being rejected by the person or the group. You see, it's really easy to be disagreeable with someone when you have no interest in being accepted by them. But it's a completely different story when it comes to disagreeing with a person or group of people you hope to gain approval and validation from. And even in like certain situations, they might ask you what you think, and you don't want to sort of say something that's going to have them reject you. So you might even lie, or you might even share a sort of opinion that you don't even truly believe yourself. But you know that they're going to sort of accept that opinion. They're going to accept what you think. Well, it's not really what you think, obviously, but it's, you could share something that you think will be safe with them. But when you sort of put out this opinion or you share this idea with someone that you don't truly believe yourself, this creates what's called cognitive dissonance, which Google defines as a psychological phenomenon where people experience internal conflict and discomfort due to holding contradictory ideas, values, or behaviors. This discomfort motivates individuals to restore consistency, consonance, in their minds. Basically, this is just the smart way of describing the act of saying something or behaving in a way that is in opposition to what you truly believe. And so your mind can't even really handle, it doesn't know what to do when you act in a way that goes against what you believe. And so if you don't align your actions with what you believe, your mind will start to align your beliefs with your actions. So I'll get into this a little bit, but basically you'll sort of create lies to cope with your actions. And at first you might know that they're lies. You might know that they're just excuses, but your mind will actually sort of trick you into believing those lies over time. This is what causes people to make excuses that they end up believing for bad habits or behaviors. For example, someone who steals, they might at first know it's wrong. They might know in their heart, this is wrong, stealing's wrong, I shouldn't do this. But because they want this thing for free, they don't want to pay for this thing, they want it more than they want to uphold their sort of moral values, they will justify their actions by saying something like, I'm not stealing from a person, I'm stealing from a greedy corporation. If they're stealing from like Target or Walmart or something, or if they're stealing from someone personally, like let's say they're stealing out of someone's backpack, they might think, whatever, this person's rich, this person has money, they can get a new one. But it's not about who you're stealing from. It's about corrupting yourself morally. It's not actually about, you stole $5 earrings from Target. It's not about the monetary value of what you're taking. It's more about what you're doing to yourself by going against what you believe to be wrong. And so, the person that steals can't handle that sort of guilt and shame, so they rationalize their behavior with disillusionment. Another example of people pleasing would be, let's say you believe you're someone who stands up for people who are being made fun of, but when your friends start picking on someone and they take it too far, you stay silent in fear of being rejected by your friends. But you justify this and rationalize this by saying, they're just joking around, or, that's not my battle to fight. I'm just going to stay out of this one. But cognitive dissonance ends up leading to lower self-esteem, and it causes you to eventually trade the beliefs that you have that you think are true for beliefs that are untrue. Because the mind doesn't understand when you tell yourself a lie. If you tell that lie to yourself enough times, you actually start to believe that lie. You believe it consciously, but I think deep down, subconsciously, it's wrong. You know that what you're believing is wrong. And so it sort of creates this split in you. And you start to, you don't really know what you believe and what you don't believe anymore. And also when you act in a way that is against your beliefs, it does create this sort of lower self-esteem, and it creates this shame inside of you, that sort of seeps its roots into all other areas of your life. And, this sounds extreme with the example of maybe stealing or people pleasing, but, someone who's willing to, corrupt themselves morally in one area oftentimes is able to rationalize and justify other bad behaviors, bad habits, which they all sort of have this collaborating effect to sort of ruin yourself, mentally and emotionally and spiritually. But ultimately, the way you become someone who isn't afraid to share their beliefs, no matter the social cost, and to be someone who stands by their convictions, you need to learn how to stop seeking validation, acceptance, and approval from other people. Obviously, this is a lot easier said than done, and depending on the level of people pleasing you're at, this could be a long journey that takes a lot of effort. This is something I struggled with, all my life, and I still find myself wrestling with all the time, but I have found a solution. And I mentioned at the beginning of the video that, over the last few years, I've really been sort of growing out of that. And that's because about 5 years ago now, it was May of 2021, I don't know, we're in 2026 now. This is crazy. Yeah, it's about 5 years. You know, I started walking with God. I became a Christian, and through that relationship with God and through walking with him and learning more about who he is and how he views me, I realized that, you know, I'm accepted by God. You know, I'm completely validated by God. He loves me for exactly who I am. And so, you know, if I have the acceptance of God and the validation of God, why would I be concerned with the validation of a mere human being, of a mere man? You know, it pales in comparison. You know, I have the acceptance of the God of the universe. You know, I'm loved completely by the God of the universe. Why would I be concerned if I'm loved by another human being? And, you know, this is a belief that I have. I believe this to be true. But, you know, I'm still a human being. I still go back and forth wrestling with, you know, trying to gain acceptance from other people, because we are social beings. You know, we do seek the acceptance of a tribe of people. But, you know, I'm learning for this truth to become real and take full effect, I have to care more about what God thinks rather than what I think or any other man thinks. And really this just comes from, you know, if I'm trying to provide you guys a solution to people pleasing and seeking validation from people, I have to provide some sort of, you know, exercise or practice you can do. And really this just comes from praying daily, reading your Bible daily. And specifically, I would even go online and like Google like verses that show me what God thinks of me, and just spend time reading those verses every day if you have to, and just sort of meditate on those. Sit there and meditate on those and pray and be in communion with God. And, you know, if you're seeking a relationship with God and you like actively seek that, he's going to, you know, he's definitely going to pull his weight, and he's going to show you exactly what he thinks of you. He's going to show you that you're loved. He's going to validate you. And like through that, supernaturally, there's going to be, you know, you can't help but start to believe what God believes about you. He'll give you opportunity to, you know, stand up for yourself, stand up for other people, share opinions that, you know, people aren't going to like. And when those opportunities arise, you have to take them, because that's the other thing is when you're given an opportunity to do what you know is right, and you actually take that opportunity to do it, you start to rewire your brain. You start to train yourself to do what you know is right. And the first time's always the hardest. And then the second time's still hard, but it's a little bit easier. And then the third time, fourth time, it gets easier and easier, and you start to form this habit and this way of living that is true to yourself and true to God. And so that's why it takes time, it takes practice, it takes energy, it takes, you know, I remember when I started sort of standing up for what I knew to be true, what I knew to be right, I would be like shaking, because I was so afraid of being rejected by people and, you know, upsetting people. And, you know, obviously when it happened, it wasn't as scary as I thought. Or it was scary, but there wasn't any sort of like negative outcome from it, like real negative outcome from it. And even if it was like, okay, well, if what I'm believing right now is true, and it's what I truly believe, it's far more worth it to be authentic to myself than to be accepted by a group of people. And so, yeah, I would just say, you know, it's dangerous to sort of seek validation from people and to look for approval from other people all the time. And the solution is to just seek a relationship with Christ and figure out what he thinks about you, and sort of learning to accept his love. So yeah, I might make another video soon about another like aspect of people pleasing, because I mean, dude, trust me, like I spent so much of my life being a huge people pleaser, so I have a lot of experience with this, and I think a lot of knowledge that I could sort of impart to you guys. Let me know if that's something you'd want to see. Let me know if this video helped you guys at all. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys.